So today I have an interesting video for you. We're going to be talking about feeding the wild birds like this finch right here. But the good news is you're going to learn how to take pictures of the birds that come to your feeders whether you're home or not. Now these sequences were filmed with a regular camera. This is a female cardinal, by the way, but we're going to look at another way of capturing birds at the feeder automatically. And this is it. These are feeders that are made out of plastic, and you fill them up with seed, and look what's inserted in the housing. A blink camera. There are other camera systems that are compatible with it. I got a kit that has 2 of these feeders, and it works with 2 blink cameras, and I'm going to walk you through the entire thing, including showing you sequences that these cameras capture. So it's compatible with Blink, Ring Stick Up, WiseCam Outdoor, and WiseCam V3. I don't know what those are. Blink and Arlo are what I use here. So in this case, Blink is compatible. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to use 2 of them. We're going to set up 2 feeders, and I'm going to explain why that might be important to you. They're set up for outdoors, of course. They're security cameras, but in this case, they're going to be filming birds coming to feeders, or anything else, by the way, that comes to a feeder at night. It says 2-year battery life, weather resistant, but we're also going to put solar panels out there. And that's going to keep them from running down, so you don't have to get out there and change the batteries. A solar panel for Blink Outdoors. Says it's eco-friendly. I don't know what that means, but they come in 2 colors, black or white. I chose black because I live in a cold area, and I want the winter sun to melt the snow off of the solar panels. They're designed specifically for the Blink cameras, and it comes as an entire kit. 2 feeders, 2 solar panels, 2 cameras, and you're ready to go. So I'm going to show you step by step how to put it together, what the features are, and I'm going to show you how they work outside. Feed birds and record their activities. Camera not included, but it is with this kit, compatible with 4 kinds of cameras, and there's 2 mounting styles, and I'm going to show you both of those options, and we're going to install it 2 ways too. And this is how it comes. This is the box. There's the instruction packet. Everything comes wrapped in plastic. No big surprise there. And we're not going to spend a lot of time unboxing it. I'm just showing you what to expect. Bird feeder instructions. Safety information. Pay attention to that. A lot of people don't read instructions, but I suggest that you do, even though in this instance I'm not going to follow the instructions when it comes to the size screws to use. But there's the feeder base, and it even has a hummingbird feeder insert at the end, and it goes together very easy. I'm going to show you how. Of course, you can see through the front of it, so you know when the feed is full. Also, there's a screw receiver in the bottom that looks like it's made out of brass, and that's for mounting it with a stainless steel bracket to a tree. These are the adapters, depending on the camera company that you're going to use. I don't need any of these adapters because the camera that I'm going to use is the Blink camera. And this feeder comes with a hole pre-cut just for that. The holes on the top of this roof are designed to handle the mount for your solar panel. It looks like the holes on the side there go right through, but they don't. There's an inside plastic piece there that blocks it. Now there are spacers that come with it, and we're going to use the longest one, and that's because we're putting in a Blink camera, and the Blink camera is thin, and that keeps it in place. Different mounting hardware. 1 metal wall mount. That's what we're going to use for both of them. But there's also a mounting strap, and so you can mount it around a pole, onto a tree, something like that. And there are small mounting screws that are short, and nice long ones for the wood. And these are the different features that come with it. All this stuff comes in the kit, except the cameras. You have to pick your kit that comes with the cameras, but if you already have one of these cameras, that's good news, because you won't have to buy them for the feeders. So here you go. And they come with these Energizer lithium batteries. I happen to know that those batteries last a very long time and handle the cold extremely well. So I'm glad that those came with it. A lot of things don't come with batteries these days. There's also mounting hardware for the cameras, which we won't need because we're putting them inside the feeder housing. Also, follow these instructions because you're going to have to install an app on your phone so you can check the cameras. You don't need to have cloud service, but I do subscribe to the cloud service because I use these cameras for a lot of things other than just the feeder watch situation here. Look at the back of it here. It even comes with a key, and we're going to take this back off. I'm going to explain step by step exactly why. There's a weather seal in the middle there, and there's a USB connection. Now the plastic tool that comes with it is so that you can unscrew this screw right here. It won't come all the way out. It'll just release the back so you can access the inside to put the batteries in, and more importantly, so you can set up your camera with your Wi-Fi and your phone. So there it is. Look at the back. There's a little code right there. So don't put this thing together yet, but do install the batteries because you're going to need it so that your phone can get the app, and then so that the app can detect the cameras. And then you assign names to the cameras. I'm going to show you how to do all of that. There you go. Just pay attention to positive and negative poles there. Put your batteries in right, and you're good to go. Now I have the app here. If you look on the right, second from the top is the Blink app. And as I mentioned before, I already use it. I use it to monitor mouse boxes, chicken coops, things like that, because they're tiny and they go day or night pretty darn decent. I have them marked Bluebird box because I'm also monitoring the interior of a Bluebird box while the birds will make their nests this year. So that's going to be fun. And we have to disarm the system, of course, before you install the new device. So we go here and we're going to add a new device, and it has all the different camera styles. There's a sync module that comes with the cameras. I have that. That's pretty self-explanatory. You plug it in and you detect it with your Bluetooth on your phone. Very easy. Wireless cameras, indoor, outdoor cameras, sync module required. And once you have the sync module, it doesn't matter how many cameras you cycle through it. There's a subscription for the program that I don't know the price of right offhand, but you can get an annual subscription that will allow you to run any number of cameras. So anyway, we're going to sync up this camera. And we do it by scanning that little code there. This is the incorrect QR label. Please scan the code on the back of your device. And this is why I didn't want you to put the back right on the camera yet. So we're going to scan it. I'm adding it to my collection of bird watching cameras. Click continue, and then you'll look at the top. It says looking for your camera. If you position your camera on your phone right over the QR code, it'll read it. Next thing you know, it's going to say updating firmware, and that's what's going on right there. And this takes several minutes, so I'm not going to show you the whole thing. I think it took about 5 minutes to update the firmware. And once it does that, it says camera added successfully, and you click done, and there it is. Now you notice it has this long serial number with it. If you click those little sliders on the right there, you get to rename your cameras. You can also assign them to any grouping of cameras that you want. So if you've got garden cameras, bird feeders, maybe you have a chicken coop that you want to see if something's eating your chicken feed, or you want to see your bee yard, you just assign it. So it says it was updated on March 4th of 2023. So we're good to go. There it is. Device is all set, and you choose your own device settings. For example, how sensitive the trigger is going to be, whether you want it to record for 20 seconds, 2 minutes, however long you want it to be, and how long you want it to wait before it shuts down between activity. So all up to you. I set it up for 20 seconds, and to recycle and reset every 10 seconds that a feeder gets fed, it gets visited, and let me tell you what's going to happen. You're going to get a lot of video captures, and I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like at the end of this video. There's a micro USB connection, and we're going to run that through the back panel of the feeder housing before we put it all together. So, Blink camera, don't forget to peel off all the little protective clear pieces they have on there. And there's the activity sensor, motion sensor, the camera lens in the middle, and then of course there's a speaker at the bottom. Good to go. Don't forget to seal up that cover there. So we're going to mount it to a 4x4 post. We're also going to mount another one to a tree. But first, let's get this thing put together. Super simple. I'll show you how. There's 2 pieces here for the bottom. And it's got holes in it too, so that if any water comes in on your seed, it will just drain out the bottom. Pretty simple. Follow the guides there on the sides, and you'll see that there's 3 raised ribs there. You slide them in until it clicks. There you go. Click the other side. And there you go. It's all set. How easy is that? So if you're worried about assembly, this is very easy to do. Now look at this little piece on the end. That's a hummingbird feeder. I am not going to be putting hummingbird syrup in this at all. And that's because I have honeybees everywhere and they would be all over that. It's a very shallow reservoir. I'm just going to leave it as a structural piece on the feeder. But if you wanted to feed hummingbirds, I suppose you could put that in there. But I think as shallow as that is, you're going to be attracting wasps and bees, as well as hummingbirds probably. But I like to separate my hummingbird feeders from seed feeders, so I'm going to use this one exclusively as a seed feeder. There it is. There's the whole unit. Pretty simple. And of course there's the brass receiving threaded area for the bottom, and that's what I'm going to use because I'm going to use the stainless steel brackets here. Tips for installing the bird feeder. Install the bird feeder in a place where birds are likely to go. That's good advice. We have wild birds everywhere here. And make sure it's facing a direction with less trigger events. So don't face it towards your driveway or your sidewalk or wherever people walk all the time. The other thing is you have this attachment for your solar panel, and it can adjust to any direction. So we have two of them. That's good news. It's just going to keep the batteries charged and we don't have to worry about it. 2x solar panels, 360-degree mounting bracket, turns in any direction, has a USB connector. We're going to plug that into the back of our phone. Battery capacity and everything else. So these panels are pretty well made. And remember, I chose the black one because I want the sun to hit it. I want it to warm up in wintertime and melt snow off of it so that it charges. In fact, wintertime is the most critical time to be feeding your birds because that's when they need the seeds. We're going to feed them more than seeds, by the way, because I'm going to try to attract bluebirds with something better than mealworms. We're going to show you that too. But this is all straightforward. See the arrow there? The bracket only goes into the back of this thing one way, and this micro USB connection has a weather seal built into it. That's pretty decent. Nice rubber weather seal to make sure that moisture doesn't get into the back of your camera. And then of course this is the post that you're going to mount your solar panel to if you pick that option. These are all optional. You can get just the feeders if you want. I'm a fan of solar panels. I don't want to get out there and change batteries because we have a lot of bird activity out here, and I know these cameras are going to trigger frequently. So here's where I departed from the instructions. See these long screws? That's for screwing into wood. I'm going to use those to mount the solar panel holding bracket, and that's because if you go all the way inside, there is a post that these will go through. We get a lot of winds here, and I was very concerned about just using the short screws, so I ran the long screws all the way through that little piece of plastic down at the bottom there. I think it gives it more strength, and we're going to need it. It's kind of flimsy. So then of course we have the longest spacer that goes in here because we're using the blink cameras. That's how it's going to go. I'm going to put it right in, but first we have to connect it with the micro USB. There you go. It's very easy. You just put it in the way that it fits. It only goes one way. And now we're going to put the camera in, line it up, and because the housing is made for the blink system, we don't have to use any of the adapters. And then we're going to put the backing on, and that little spacer is going to hold that camera right up against the front of the feeder. And we're going to click it right there, and we're good to go. You can also stuff excess wire through the back hole there if you wanted to. I'm just going to wrap mine up and use a strap to hold it together. But that's the whole thing, pretty much ready to go. But we have to put seed in it, of course. That's the whole point of it, is to feed the birds and then get a glimpse of them while they're feeding. So we're going to put black oil sunflower seed in because black oil sunflower seed is kind of the widest appeal, and it gives your birds lots of nutrients that they need getting through winter. They burn a lot of energy staying warm, and black oil sunflower seed is the best, in my opinion, for wild birds. And try not to make a mess, as I'm doing right here, as you fill the back of it. I think going forward, I probably won't be pulling off the lid, pulling off the roof very much. I think I'm just going to keep the reservoir, the lower part, full and not go through the trouble of pulling this off every time, although there's no hardware holding it on. It's very easy to do, so you can take that right off, and now we're ready to go. So for black oil sunflower seeds, we're set. Let's go put this thing out in the bee yard, but I also want to demonstrate, just in case people are a little bit confused on how to work the strap that goes around a tree. I'm not using the strap, but I wanted you to see how to thread it through here to make sure that it holds and won't slip and let your feeder fall off. Now this would, by the way, be the most secure method of attaching your feeder to a tree instead of the bracket. The bracket is a little bit flimsy. In other words, there's a lot of movement of the feeder, but I didn't want to pull the backing right snug against a tree. So for these demonstrations, I'm only going to use the metal brackets, but you can choose anything you like. And of course, you don't have to use a screwdriver if you use the strap. Now there's one short, fat screw here with a Phillips head on it, and that's for mounting your bracket to your camera underneath. Very straightforward. We're going to go out here, and I just happen to have this post 4x4 that happens to be 12 feet tall, and it has a Peterson house on one side, and I'm going to use the stainless steel bracket, which I've already screwed into the 4x4 post that's been here for 21 years. So it's pressure treated. Dawn redwood tree right there. We have spruce trees. We have deciduous forests. We have all kinds of wild birds here. So needless to say, this feeder is going to be visited, and I'm going to show you what species come to it right away. But see what I mean by, now that doesn't mean it would break off, but it does move a lot, and I can only imagine in high winds or storm conditions that this is going to be moving quite a bit, and that's why I wanted to run those longer screws down and through the top to get a good hold on that solar panel. A little worried about that. Please look down in the video description if you want to see how this holds up as time passes, because if storms come through and the top comes off entirely or something like that, I'll be sure to update the comment section so that you'll know what's going on. So there we are, the blink camera, seeds in place. Birds are going to come to this right away, no doubt. Plus, the roof extends out over the feed long enough, far enough to protect it from normal rain. But here we get wind and rain, which are going to blow it right in. Don't forget to arm your system once your cameras are out there so that you can see what birds are coming through. And we have two feeding stations, one crab tree, and the other is attached to a pear tree. So that's a live stream, so you can click a camera to see what it sees. And then I'm also going to show you some of the lighting conditions, and you're going to listen to the audio coming from the actual cameras, and we're going to get what they trigger on. So here's my other mount. This is on pear tree here, and I separated the solar panel from the feeder, which I think is a preferred configuration. I also wrapped the power line from the panel to the camera a little loose because we obviously don't want it to be tight. In spring, this tree is going to get a little thicker. You don't want things to snug up and damage it. Also, you notice there was a little blue indicator light on the front of that camera right then, and that's because it's picking up my motion. Because remember, it's armed, it's active. It activates, you control the sensitivity of it, but anything walks past in front of this camera and it's going to record whatever that is. And again, we look at the drain holes in the bottom. I think it's a pretty decent design. So of course the proof is in the pudding. We want to see what kind of birds come to it. So the other thing is I want to try to attract the bluebirds and some other species that eat bugs. And Grubterra's black soldier fly larvae is what I'm using. I use this to feed my chickens, to train chickens. If you want a chicken to be your friend, this is the stuff you give them. It's produced by Grubterra, and that's out of Chester, New Jersey. This is an 80-ounce bag, so it's a nice big bag. Lasts a long time. What's in it? Well, black soldier fly larvae. By the way, for those of you who use worm bins, black soldier fly larvae makes a great worm bin exchange. 75% more calcium than mealworms. So if you're raising chickens, that means you're going to get better eggs, better nutrition for your birds, and I'm hopefully going to feed bluebirds here. Who comes right away? That was a tufted titmouse. Now, the camera, of course, is the only limiting factor when it comes to the quality of the image, frame rate, and this is 1080p, so this is a nice big image. And the frame rate is under 30 frames per second, as I posted there. And that's a tufted titmouse. They're pretty cool. And you definitely won't be seeing these in the city. What you see in the city are a bunch of house sparrows. And what we have out here are all the cool songbirds instead. And you heard a woodpecker in the distance back there. That wasn't somebody shooting a gun. This is woodpecker season. All the birds are doing their territorial calls. They're singing out to one another. And they're setting up nesting territories, actually, here in March. This is a nuthatch, of course. These are birds that you often see going down trees upside down. and they make a little quacking sound. So one of the cool aspects of this is, other than recording the sound of a nuthatch pecking at the camera or the housing itself, because it sees its own reflection there, it's trying to chase itself away, you get to hear the little quacking sounds they make. So when it flares its wings like that and it's pecking like that, it's trying to scare itself away. So it thinks there's another nuthatch here at the feeder and it wants to drive it off. So there is some territoriality going on. There's that little quacking sound they make. And this is why I think it's important. We do have 3 other feeders other than the ones that we're reviewing here. And it is important to have a variety of different feeders. And that's because you get some bird species that are territorial, and they will take over and dominate small feeders like this. You can see the other feeders in the background there on that post that has a bat house at the top of it, Peterson house on the side, and then of course this feeder with the camera and the solar panel about 5 feet 6 inches off the ground. So you want to put them at a convenient height, of course, so you can keep up with them. Again, I'm not going to pull the lids off. We're just going to keep them full as far as the tray goes. Here's a black-capped chickadee. Chickadees are everywhere, and if you notice too, the lighting circumstances are different. That's because I want you to see how well it records in different lighting conditions. What I do think, though, is that when they're on that hummingbird feeder edge right there, they're kind of in focus. But if you're like this nuthatch here who's pecking at everything on Earth, they're too close to the camera. So we're out of focus. We're not getting the best image that we could. And I think that a feeder that relies on cameras like this to record the birds would be better off if it had a longer feeding trough. In other words, let's get the birds a little farther away from the camera itself. And I have tested Arlo cameras against the Blink cameras to see which one had the closest focal distance. And the Blink camera did focus closer than the Arlo cameras, so this probably is your best camera choice. And that was a Donny woodpecker that just flew away there. Now we have the Soldier Fly Larvae. And of course, wouldn't you know it, Mr. Nuthatch here is just tossing the Soldier Fly Larvae off onto the ground, which you can hear chickens that are not in view of the camera, but they're happy to come and pick up the Soldier Fly Larvae that are on the ground. And the nuthatch is just sweeping them out of the way, trying to get to the black oil sunflower seeds that are at the bottom. So there's another feature, I would think, since I'm reviewing this, that would help out. And if we want to keep some of the feed in the feeder just for the birds to eat instead of dishing it out side to side, some kind of grid that would overlay the feeding basin would be helpful. And the birds could eat through the grid, but they wouldn't be able to sweep their beak side to side and dish the food out onto the ground. But since we have a flock of chickens, of course, we don't mind that too much because our birds are eating them then also. Black-capped chickadee back here again. You would think chickadees might go for the grubs, but it picks them up and kind of tosses them. I think they might be too big. Of course, the nuthatch comes in and drives off the chickadee, so there's some territory issues going on there. Now we're back to the tufted titmouse. Again, the titmouse is going for black oil sunflower seeds, and you're going to see too that the titmouse will hold the sunflower seeds between its toes and peck them open, often right at the feeder, so that's kind of cool to see. Here we are before sunrise on a very cold winter day, 25 degrees Fahrenheit. So we notice that the roof protects the lens from getting condensation on it. So we don't have fog, we can still see what's going on. There was a chickadee, then there's a titmouse, and we're snow covered, and the feed is kind of frozen here. And the birds are getting too close to the camera. But you can see what's going on in the background. And here we are under very critical lighting, actually. So for the Blink camera, it's performing pretty well because the sun is hitting the lens. And that sun flare there. So we're still getting a good image. We have some blown out highlights to the left corner there. Much to be expected, but I think the birds are still clear enough to be identifiable. Good news too is that we can hear their sounds Just listen to this excellent sound of a bird pecking through the substrate. This is a woodpecker, of course. We have two very popular woodpeckers here that look very similar, the Donny and the hairy woodpeckers. And when you look at the long beak on this rascal right here, we know that that's the hairy woodpecker. If he turned his head sideways, his eye would be dead center from the distance to the tip of its beak and the distance to the back of his head. So this is our hairy woodpecker. But the lighting is really good. Now here we go. We have morning light again hitting the feeder itself, reflecting back on the bird. So that's giving us some highlights here on this titmouse. And it's doing what I described, holding the seed between its toes and then pecking it open and getting at the center of the black oil sunflower seeds. 25 degrees Fahrenheit during this sequence here. Now we have good sunlight on a really cold day like today. We know that really cold days are brutal on batteries and can run your batteries down much quicker. And so having a solar panel facing the right direction will keep your batteries charged so that they're not going to run down as quick as they otherwise would without the solar panel. So I recommend that feature for sure. Look how close this bird is to the camera. So we're not going to get high quality, high resolution images. You might be wondering about still photos. Well, when I went through the app and looked up still photography, it only had the option to take a picture every hour or something like that. And here's my wife out filling the feeders herself because she wants to see them eat those grubs. Black soldier fly larvae. And here we go. Another woodpecker, of course. And now here's the star of the show, the bluebird. Listening to the bluebirds, they're here early. It always troubles me when I see bluebirds around because I know they only eat insects usually. I have seen them eat holly berries before. But what they really do is they fly to the ground and they're always grabbing bugs. So the fact that they're here early, setting up their territories and trying to claim their nest boxes means that it would be great if we could get them to eat something that we can put out. They won't eat seeds. They do eat the soldier fly larvae. So here's a red-bellied woodpecker, nice and big. I didn't expect them to actually come to these small feeders, but here you go. And the other thing I was hoping, that a woodpecker would eat the soldier fly larvae, but it didn't. It went for the black oil sunflower seeds. That's fine too. I just like to see what eats what. Common grackle up here. He decided he did not like the look of the camera and took off. So grackles aren't coming to the feeder, and that's fine with me too. They're not songbirds. Then we have a house finch here. They're friendly, grassy stomachs, very different from house sparrows, which we don't like because they kill off our songbirds. And that was a chickadee, of course. Here's a black-capped chickadee again. They are the first ones at feeders in the morning, and they seem to be the last ones at feeders at night. And just like many others, black oil sunflower seeds are their preference. They did not go for the Grubterra soldier fly larvae. Now there again, once you start providing feed for wild birds, especially this time of year, if you fed them through winter, it's very important not to let your feeders run out because they do develop a dependency on the seed that you're putting out. And so if you start, keep feeding. If you're going to try to stop feeding wild birds, then I would encourage you to stop doing it in a time when the environment's providing plenty for them, like in spring, and then they won't be dependent. So here we are after a heavy snowfall. The units work really nice. Our friend the nuthatch is back, of course. And everything is snow covered pre-dawn. That's why we have a blue cast on everything here. And you can see that some snow did get in and does cover some of the feed. They don't seem to mind. They just go after it anyway. And because this is on your phone, you can check it anywhere. And if you just had one feeder set up, it's been my experience after this that the bluebirds would take it over and not share it with any other birds. And here we are with the little Donny woodpecker. See how short its beak is? And its eye is a little closer to the tip of the beak than it is to the back of its head. So different from the hairy woodpecker. And it's eating those seeds whole, which I find interesting. It doesn't seem to peck them open and then eat the insides the way some of the other birds do. And of course this is a small woodpecker. And a lot of these are frozen together right now. And they have other feeder choices to go to, of course. But you can see the landscape here. Nice big red-bellied woodpecker. This is the female. The males have a continuous red mark that goes across the top of their head there. And the female here, you see that there's a break, and then there's a red patch just behind the beak. Nuthatch finally gets run off by a bigger feeder. She's not taking any nonsense from nuthatches. So what'll happen is you'll get used to all the birds that are in your area. You'll also find that by putting these out farther away from your house that you may attract some bird species that aren't comfortable coming near your house. So if you're part of the Cornell University's Feeder Watch program, the Department of Ornithology, these would be great because it records everything for you. Then you can look at it on your phone, look up a bird species if you don't know it already, and then just document when it showed up, what the weather conditions were, and what it was eating. So you get an opportunity to try out different feeds and see what bird species prefers what kind of food if you wanted to do that. Great opportunity to do lessons with your children. Midday sun, snow everywhere, high contrast, and you'll see that some of this chickadee actually disappears in the blown out areas. So all the exposure is automatic. Now here's nighttime. Hear the footprints? That's a deer walking by. So you're not going to get much night video here. I thought it would be curious if a mouse or something jumped up there to get the food. Just the deer walking by were all that was recorded, and it didn't do a very good job of getting those on video, so we did get the audio. Eastern Bluebird is back. They are definitely eating plenty of the black soldier fly larvae. Is the only thing they're coming to the feeder for. And when I did a little sideline research on that, I was very interested to learn about how much more valuable they were to the bluebirds than mealworms. Historically, people have put mealworm feeders out when they wanted to help the bluebirds get a start. I also like that there's a calcium boost there because bluebirds are going to be nesting and they're going to be laying eggs, and that's going to put a calcium demand on them. And this is the female. This female's an eater. Look at her. She just swallows one after another. Now, we've never fed bluebirds in the past, so it's going to be interesting because we do check the nest boxes. So we're going to look to see if the eggs are tougher. There won't be any broken eggs. Maybe we'll get better fledgling numbers. And it's going to be interesting to see. We have 30 bluebird boxes out on the property here, and they're all cleaned out. They're ready for spring nesting. And of course, we have one blink camera inside one of the bluebird boxes. So we're going to be able to see that nest progress. Boy, just look at her eat. That makes my wife very happy to know that the black soldier fly larvae are being eaten by them. It was her idea to put it out there. And I'm definitely a fan, I have to say. And it's giving them energy at a time when things would be lean, where they would just be sitting around enduring the cold and trying to hang on to the territories that they have, which are going to be challenged when spring gets here. House sparrows are going to come out in gangs, and they're going to be attacking the bluebirds and raiding their boxes and things like that. So maybe this nutrition will give them an edge. Here's the male, and of course he's territorial. He's eating some of the larvae too, but he spends a lot of his time pecking at his own reflection wherever he can find it. And he sees it on this feeder. Bluebirds are native. They're songbirds. They are being watched and their numbers are counted. And through the Cornell Department of Ornithology, we report on nesting pairs. They won't nest generally within 300 feet of other bluebirds, so they're actually territorial with each other, with others of the same species. And they can do up to 2 cycles of young per year. And the first cycle that hatches out, once they fledge, the offspring stick around to help the parents raise the next batch. Very interesting. And she had a little attitude there. So this couple of bluebirds does not want other bluebirds around. So if we had just one feeder, they would be dominating it for sure. Now that we're feeding the black soldier fly larvae here, they're laying claim to it. Oh, and of course eliminating right on top of the food. Chickadees getting chased off by the female bluebird there. Links will be down in the video description to show you the system, what's included, and of course links to the black soldier fly larvae. What else? The solar panels, the blink cameras. This is all a package kit, so maybe you save money doing that. Lots of options. So for seed, if you wanted the bottom line, black oil sunflower seed and black soldier fly larvae. Here's a goldfinch. Winter colors there. And you might just really enjoy seeing wild birds and knowing which species come to feed. So I want to thank you for watching, and for comparison as we close out here, if you really want high quality video of the birds that come to your feeders, you're going to have to go to some other camera system, and it probably won't be part of the actual feeder. But if you want to know passively what bird species are coming to your feeder, what they're eating, how frequently they're coming, and during what season, I think feeders with cameras built into them are a fantastic tool for being aware of the species in your area. And you can put them anywhere. And I like the idea that they have solar panels, so I think it's a good system if I could get that rooster to stop crowing. So I hope you enjoyed this review and introduction to feeding birds and having a feeder with a camera inside that captures anything that visits it. And there's the chickens, of course, benefiting from everything that gets cast out of the feeder by the visiting birds. We have Minorcas and others around here. And they even walk out in the snow, as you can see. So if you have any questions or comments, please put them down below, and I'll do my best to answer them. It's a male bluebird. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.